It is April 20th in the year 2019 here on planet Earth. Perhaps it's another date somewhere else. Welcome to OTB TV. I have a book in my hand. It's called The Medicine Way. I've referenced it several times in recent videos. Today I'm focused on sharing some bits of information out of this book. I want to get right to the point, try to be brief with some of the details. It's my goal to not give too much information. Some of the videos, I want these ideas to get out there, but I also want to share about my own spirituality as we go along the way, how I follow signs in this universe. And we should all be following like our own inner cues. And we may not even know that we have things like inner cues until later on in life, where we can look back at periods in which we had a certain vibe or a certain hunch. Maybe we had a certain personal ritual that we identified with health and wellness. Maybe we already tapped into the four directions without even realizing it. If you're an athlete, if you're a martial artist, maybe you've tried to train in certain ways to maintain a certain level of balance and versatility. Maybe there was a deeper spiritual reason to seeking balance other than what was overtly the reason. We could also find ourselves, I was getting into this while I was walking, but I can when I'm sitting, it's a different type of delivery, especially when I'm focused. And a lot of times I'm all over the map. Lately, I've tried to return my mind to certain types of meditation practice that involve way more focus than I usually dish out. So there may be a way in which we're strong, for example, in a certain element of our lives for a certain amount of time, and we may not really explore the other strengths that are out there, the other strengths that are a part of our self. So somebody may be very spiritually minded or body minded or emotional or very much of the mind without maybe seeing how the others link together. And people may be conscious that everything's linked together, mind, body, and spirit, and the emotions, but we may not be conscious day to day of whether or not we're choosing to engage with those specific forces of nature. This book talks about the cranium in the very beginning, first of all. The cranium of the human biological system is that which is left after the body is gone, and how death is a natural way of life. We all deal with it, or we all go through it. We all go through the death of others. The afterlife reality and the real purpose of our lives takes up most of my thinking right now. It's not the president, it's not the past president, it's not the next president. And I truly do believe that most people are focused mostly on like or dislike the president, with genuine spiritual ideas being for the most part not considered, especially if they blend in a hybrid fusion of ingredients, Alex Ansary style. To some it may be ego, and on one level it is ego when there's pain, and I am human, right? So, I'm not yet, I have not yet ascended to the floating on the magic carpet. Ego is part of life, the struggle. The struggle to do good deeds without necessarily the world rewarding us or sending us on a magic carpet ride, if you will. Man, I'd love to do a show in Vegas. I'm sure I could put together a presentation really quickly, and I'm sure a lot of you have faith in me, that if someone was to invite me to a particular event, that in a very short amount of time, that I can focus my talents to putting on a presentation that will make the people go, I can also be really zapped by the energy of some of these urban environments. And I know that when I visited Mark Passio's Free Your Mind conference, there were other people involved in it as well in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I was so zapped by that energy. I don't know if you guys knew this. I don't know that I've talked about this before. From living in Costilla County, Colorado, right after from going to Portland to going to Dallas to being in Costilla County, Colorado, and putting together those slides, right before my presentation on the sun, a very important chapter in my own life, it wasn't as good as it could have been because I didn't get all the sleep that I needed. We were out late, maybe not too late, but we were out late, and it was a matter of laying down and the body not being able to sleep. And there's periods in which I haven't been able to sleep right before going on a trip or doing something very, very exciting. Everything that I say, I think there's a smaller lesson in it for you in the larger world, and we'll kind of contemplate on what that is. We might as well do that now. We're not necessarily maybe getting all the rest that we need and all the enlightenment that we need and all the light that we need in the moment if we're all bogged down with all of this anticipation energy with where our lives are going to be in the next 5 years. That's a great way to put it. I very much am in that place. We also need to understand that death is a fact of life, and the death card, for example, tarot, represents more than a physical death, right? So one person that watched this channel, Esoteric Gypsy, he pulled a death card and spoke to his audience about what that means. And so we need to be able to recognize how that is manifesting in our world. We see literal deaths, but we also see periods in which we see the ending of a cycle and the beginning of a cycle. And that's where my commentary comes in, even though most people talk about spiritual things, don't talk about how they use the solar cycles against us, how they use certain energies against us, how they use certain elements of propaganda against us. It's considered unspiritual to speak of such things. And I would challenge that concept. I would say that that is probably the part of my personality and character that is connected with the ancient spiritual teachings, that recognizes the need to speak about certain things. When I talk about the need to end the silence regarding the victims of war, I will continue to say that in a general sense. You're not personally being attacked, but everyone that is listening to the things that I'm talking about is going to and should come across these ideas, and more than once. Certain things, like, we don't just learn and then like run away from it like it's not something that's relevant. Like, some people may learn like a foreign language, maybe in high school or in college, maybe younger, and it's not really relevant to their lives, so they, move on with it. With spiritual teachings and things like what goes around comes around, and remembering that there's enough time left in our life to reverse course, kind of like our own internal Superman going counterclockwise. And again, there's clockwise, but there's counterclockwise, indicating to deprogram and to reverse some sort of order. Think about the Reiki symbol. The Celtics also use the symbol of going in a opposite order. So the relevancy of talking about the injustices taking place and why it's not good to consciously be down with the program, to consciously be aligned with those that are insane in the membrane. We want to energetically disconnect with the rapport, or in the rapport with those archonic forms of consciousness that shine through our fellow species, members of our own species. And a lot of people, it's still new to them to hear someone say archonic interference. I'm sure that I'm the first person to use those two words together. Some say archontic. Some get into aliens. Some get into reptilians. Some get into narcissists. Some get into sociopaths. Some people just simply call them scumbags from the old school. But see where Alex Ansary comes in with the original language and the expansion of ideas instead of the stagnant mud of thought which permeates our society today, right? I'm into the finer things in life. Maybe it's a little bit of things that rubbed off on me from other people early on in life, and then identified, though, for me, for Alex Ansary, what are the finer ideas in life? What are the finer things in life, the finer concepts in life in a McDonald's buffet? No offense to those of us that occasionally will eat at McDonald's. It's being used as a metaphor. Why should we limit ourselves to looking through the lens of a McDonald's straw at the universe when there's so much else going on? Okay. The four corners. We mentioned in a previous video, and I should be brief on how much of this I get into, the four directions. It's also known as the four great powers, There's a section here, directional technology. Let me cover this part right here. Let's consider what is meant by the soul, because there's been so much confusion through a misunderstanding of the difference between soul and spirit. Okay, so the north is associated with the mind, the east, the spirit, and the Native American medicine wheel. And we approach this from the center where the soul is. South is the emotions, and the west is the body. And so I myself have never really differentiated a whole lot between spirit and soul, even on this channel. And this page does articulate, the author, Kenneth Meadow, his interpretation of the difference. So I'm not going to hold up the book, but on the four corners, we have spirit on the east. East is where the sun rises, by the way. There's the Native American totem association with that, as well as the association in the east between things like the tiger and fire and the east. So in the four directions around the world, from the east to Native American traditions to Europe, there are slight differences in the orientation, at least between Europe and the Native American wheel. The European wheel is said to be turned, for whatever reason, 90 degrees on its side. And so these are things to consider when bringing some of these teachings into one's life for consistency, and then determining what feels appropriate. And, I'm not getting into too much now, but reading other books or sections of other books concurrent to this, certain teachings have original sources. And so spiritual teachings may have gone in this direction, had some modification. It may also go in this direction and have additional modification. I'm also thinking spiritually of the transport of those ideas through various means throughout times. Think of the bird that flies, that can leave a dropling of a seed in a certain area where normally that seed wouldn't get. As above, so below, in the physical and the spiritual. And so in the Native American totem animal, the east is associated with the eagle, and the eagle, what now? Flies into the sun. Flies directly into the sun. How long have I been talking about the idea of souls going in and out of the sun? It's right about 10 years now. Sometimes behind the scenes with people, there are those that are chuckling behind the scenes, those that have known me over the years, how much I've struggled over the years, how eccentric I am, how all over the place I am. I appreciate those of you wishing my work well as myself. But I do hope that someone like me, with a focus that's all over the place, can also muster enough focus to get some of the key concepts out, but also that I can liberate myself from ego, knowing that if I do the work now in the body, these things will live on in spirit after I am gone. And so understanding how the medicine wheel works with regards to not only the elements, but the way the energy moves, but the birth and death process, and using the sun as an example of that, the birth of each day and the death of each day, and going through that normal process and connecting with each of those energies. To do that is to go against the grain of what we're taught in this day and age. And we're also taught so much, like it's important to live, and I think that's important to not off oneself, but it's also important to understand that there is another life that is awaiting us beyond this. It's one thing for us to get some rest when we generally need to get some rest and space from the world, our bosses, relationships, others, and maybe disconnect, but not to live our whole lives like that. It's cycle on, cycle off. Cycle on, cycle off. And in the arena of physical fitness, I, Alex Ansary, right, have confidence in my ability to advise people that are serious about athletic training in a way that I couldn't understand years ago. And what does it come with? It comes with a deepening of an understanding of our connection to nature. Not only in the sun, but the need to disconnect from that unnatural energy that throws us off. And so being surrounded by unnatural energy, electromagnetic energy and frequencies that can throw off the natural directions of nature. And so I'm here because of an inner knowing that I'm not necessarily at my best in those dense population centers. And souls like mine typically do best as philosophers living in isolation. I've gone through a lot in recent days, recent weeks. We are passing this full moon. This is also what I could describe as typical of the day after the full moon, where those previous heavy emotions that were displayed have that type of as we continue onward. And I'm pretty optimistic about the next couple of weeks, not the world. And so I'm seeking to within a rational arena that is not absorbed with materialism and other things, self-gratification, but to feel what bit of pleasure in a healthy and natural way can be felt while we still are here in the body. I do believe there is purpose in that, in being able to attain pleasure and to be able to fulfill some basic desires, all within a certain level of balance. I don't know the name of him, but I have been listening to additional lectures from new people that are not at all talking about the political spectrum. He's not at all specifically talking about the sun. I don't go out into YouTube and start typing in subjects where I expect the person that's speaking to agree with all the things that I say. In fact, none of them are talking about, like the specifics of things, but they're talking about things that my intuition has identified in them as a YouTube content creator, that they have something to contribute to me, either information in that video, something motivational, or something entertaining enough that is releasing stress and maybe providing some chuckles. And I see myself and my viewing habits now, in this moment that I speak, as dramatically different than they were 1 year ago, dramatically different than they were 2 years ago. We can look at my content 1 year ago, and I'm already starting to talk deep about the widespread effects of digital addiction. And it's been the last 2 years specifically, I've been more vocal about Facebook. It would be in the last year that I would leave Facebook, that I would stop looking at the YouTube comment section, although I appreciate the positive energy that you send there. There's also a lot of, and I explained this in the other video, there's a lot of unstable psychological forces in the audience, and the audience is described as anyone that can access YouTube. The audience is pretty friggin' big, and who's to say that those counts are accurate? And so the very best way that you can get something out of this content is to see how I'm really shining the light on issues that no other human is, and to treat it as self-help. Now, Dr. Feel Good, there's a place for that. There's even a place for me to do things, but it's like play music. For a guy as young as I am, well, I'll be 40 soon, but that's not the generation of those that grew up listening to the best of the 70s and 80s. And maybe some awesome, a few selections from the 90s, but not a whole lot. And not a whole lot of selections after the 2000s, but I like that synthwave stuff, as you've seen, but that's about it. I'd like to, on Patreon, for the people that are supporting there, maybe even put on my select love songs from the 70s and 80s just to show that other creative side of myself. Since my last recording, I've contemplated that more, it's not just Dr. Solar, and I am going to wear that hat. Perhaps it's going to be another YouTube channel where I do solar, and all solar all the time. It's Dr. Solar, right? Formerly known as Alex Ansary, now wearing a solar-created special lab coat with supernatural abilities from many hours of meditation and other things. Directed energy application. And while I'm trying to be humorous, I'm being serious. I live in a world, unfortunately, like it or not, where a lot of my ideas are so kind of like outside the box as it is. Only so many humans are going to like those outside the box ideas presented on the same plate. Again, back to the buffet example. I'd love to be, by the way, at a good buffet. And it's been a while since I've been at that really good Japanese buffet in Portland, Oregon. Well, it's like $25, where it used to be like free on your birthday. It might still be. Again, as I said earlier, I remember someone earlier on telling me about the finer things in life from his perspective within a matrix description of finer things in life. But are we tapping into the finer thought forms in life, or have we unconsciously allowed the muddy thought forms, the damaged self images of this world infect us? I can also see how some people that came up in the decades before us, I mean, it was a more violent world, to remind some of you. The things that other people had to survive, otherwise something really bad could have happened, and in some cases did happen, right? We live in a world now where even though there is a lot of violence being dished out, things are for the most part relatively peaceful in a lot of our towns, cities, and counties. Violent crime does tend to go up and down. The point being made here is there's actually less excuse for a lot of the average human beings that are out there to do nothing. There's less of an excuse. A lot of them now really have a free pass in ways in which the people that came before them, not so much. Yes, there's things to be concerned about with the internet, right? But when you talk about getting into spirituality and saying things without saying it directly, right? For example, picture someone with a totally clean record, someone that's widely respected by their community, someone that's not a minority, or if they are a minority, they're in an environment to where they're already accepted by their peers, or they're in a minority environment where they're not a minority amongst them. But picture a number of different scenarios to where business leaders, politicians, and others have actual money and capital to actually do something good in this world before they're gone. Specifically, think about the mega rich, or people that just through some chance came upon some money, maybe a inheritance. But we're talking about people with significant resources, not people just taking on to survive. They know they're not taking that with them. What I said earlier in another video, and I see this in parts of Colorado, and I see this in elements of the audience, and I'm just saying this to recommend that it doesn't happen to you, and I don't want it to happen to me. There's a sense of anger that overtakes some people when they're in their older age because of a lot of unresolved things. We should seek to resolve those things and not go into the afterlife assuming the worst, selling ourselves short because we've reached a certain marker on the road, because maybe there's something there in which we feel that we're not good enough. We have to address that on our own. I'm not necessarily here to tell you that I got that figured out. I'm here to tell you, though, that I'm totally confident in myself that I have figured out very direct core life issues for me, for you, for others, and that these core issues for the soul, I'm going to keep going with this, are not limited to humans. There are challenges of the soul that those demons that are out there, actual demons, they have their own responsibility to tap into the truth. And the truth shall set them free of the type of hell dimension that they're in. North, air. East, fire. South, water. West, earth. Right? Even if you've never even tapped into that, and I haven't necessarily tapped into the four directions specifically, or the cross as a spiritual tool, usually just deep breathing, meditation, and other forms of body movements, martial arts exercise, that type of thing, to tap into energy. But to tap into it directly through the four corners, and I've been thinking more about this directly, even before I picked up this book at the Goodwill for $2, as if it was waiting there for me. But these elements within our own body, within our own consciousness, north mind, east spirit, south emotions, west body. The north receives, the east is determining, the south is giving, the west is holding. Again, in the middle is soul, in the middle, central is ether, or also spelled Aether. And also there is the concept of the clockwise motion for a lot of things. The way that the sun rotates clockwise, a clockwise motion to working within the wheel. There are also other descriptions that discuss working it in a counterclockwise motion. Clockwise is identified with kind of programming something or setting something into motion, with counterclockwise being the opposite. Again, yin and yang, these concepts having like a deeper fundamental meaning. Night and day, masculine, feminine, soft and hard, and the other ways in which we have the duality or the polarities. North, south, we have this split. Earth energy, bring it in, cosmic energy. That was a very long video I did on the sun. I have been thinking about breaking it up into about 20 videos with brief little 2 to 5 minute little clips here and there hidden on those various dots, and that's going to do more good than that 3-hour video. That's one thing that I will be doing in the future. Okay, so the spirit, the body, the emotions, and the mind connecting together on the medicine wheel, the 4 corners, and the center stone, also identified with green, being where the soul is. So here, Kenneth is describing the difference between the spirit and the soul. Our spirit is our individuated life force with intelligence, an essence or spark of the great spirit. The spirit is immortal. It cannot be destroyed even by death. It is always existing, our permanent soul or our permanent self. The soul, rather, is a vehicle for expressing the spirit's individuality from life to life, recording and storing experiences and modifying the personality as the being evolves. The soul can be damaged. We can lose a part or parts of it through traumatic experiences. A bad accident, rape, incest, divorce, for instance, are likely to damage the soul. We can actually give a part of ourselves, our soul, away to another quite unconsciously through the power or influence that person has over our lives, and we can have a part of our soul taken by another person. And again, this is usually an unconscious act. Now, taking a look at that statement there, that medicine, and applying to the modern world would make someone what? Conspiracy theorist. Are or are not certain ways of thinking about this world being quickly marginalized as conspiracy theorists? And is conspiracy theory being marketed as something hip, cool, something like out of Jesse Ventura's TV show? Yeah! Or is this something that looks pretty bad? Pretty bad. You know, I didn't like the fact that Jesse Ventura had an alliance with the big boss man down in Austin, right? But he did a recent video on algorithms from hell that I did download. I am selective with what I watch, but I will take a look at that and let you know what I think. I have been describing to you my own experience with algorithms from hell. Dun dun dun. The movie that hasn't been made but probably should. And yeah, I do see myself writing more and expressing a lot of these concepts in some sort of paper form. You could even say that my life really started out with learning things the hard way and moving into the video portion where I've talked about key spiritual concepts from the get-go, even if I did seem a little eccentric, even if I did need to work on my speaking skills along the way. And now that I'm almost 40, really, right, I'm not even really trying to get much better. I'm just trying to slow it down enough so that the ideas are understood and make sure things are documented in writing, the things that need to be documented, and being mindful about things that shouldn't be written down, things that shouldn't be done on the internet. And this includes ways in which we connect with the internet, ways in which we allow the internet energies, or anyone on the internet per se, to try to manipulate our frequency. And if people allow themselves to get too addicted to the internet, other people in news headlines and thought forms can affect their own personal chi, their own personal sun, specifically solar plex, that soul part of them, soul center, in the center of the 7 chakras. Tai Chi is important, Qigong is important, but I don't officially study those things. because certain things may be just naturally within us. It's also known as ki to the Japanese, prana to the Indians, or just energy to those of us Americans. And that's America with a big old, like, hold a burger, like, Americans, energy drink. It's a chi drink. So, yeah. The other thing that I will mention is, I don't know if I have it with me here. I'll go ahead and show it to you. This is a soundboard, and so when I get some mail at some point soon, I'm going to connect my XLR to this, and then I will be using my microphone. So those of you that like to listen to these videos, maybe while you're sleeping, but maybe you wish the audio was just a little bit better without it being overdriven, I'm going to be working on that. I'm going to be working on 2019 being the year of a leap in audio quality. Things are about where they need to be on video. The general concepts that I put out there are already out there. And now it's refining, and seeking ways to help myself to the next level in ways in which I know I put a lot of information out there. Some of it actually needs to be re-highlighted and shown and delivered in a brief fashion to where its original delivery may be lost like a needle in the haystack. So I appreciate the feedback that I get from others over the years that help me improve at delivering this message. I'm very focused on trying to impart this essence of moving things forward in the new cycle, right? This isn't limited to talking about the solar cycle and whether or not we're in solar cycle 24 or 25. We're literally in a new solar cycle every single day when you wake up and that light comes up. And that solar cycle ends when that light goes down. And the ancients understood our relationship to these elements. Just like Jordan Maxwell would share with his audience for many, many years, the basics of the sun having a reverence, or the ancients having a reverence for the sun, although it could really go vice versa. The connection between the sun and the earth, and the human being that is the conduit in between the two. So, hope you enjoy this Saturday afternoon, delivered here from the Colorado Mountains. I am Alex Ansary, signing off, and we'll talk to you next time.